Hello and welcome to this exciting tutorial where I show you how to create a nav bar that is responsive. Okay, so as you can see it here, it's just an ordinary navigation bar, but if I go into the responsive design mode, you see that it has this submenu coming up here. Okay, so if I zoom out, you see this big menu come there. If we go to a mobile view, there's that there. So pretty cool stuff, and I'm going to show you how to make this. Okay, so let's begin. So to begin, open your text editor. This could be any text editor of your choice, including Windows Notepad. I'll be using Sublime Text. And on my desktop, I've created a folder called nav. So you can put this folder anywhere on your computer and you can name it anything you want. And then in here, I have all these images that I'm going to be using to design our thing. And you can find a link in the description to a zip file containing all these. Okay, so let's go back to our text editor and let's actually create a new file and hit save. And we're going to call this one index.html. The name really doesn't matter. You can name it anything you want. So that's up to you. So index.html. And then if I type HTML, Sublime Text will fill in the blanks for me. And I'll say nav bar as the title. So if it didn't fill in the blanks, you can easily just type this content here. No big deal. Okay, so now just before the body, I'm going to put a style tag here so we can put some styles here. And then inside the header, the body, sorry, I will put a header tag because we are designing a header after all. So what I will do now is go to nav and click and drag my website to my web browser. Okay, so let's put something we can see in here. Now, for this whole thing to actually work, this responsive design, there are a few principles you need to understand. So this is what I need to explain to you now, how this whole thing will work before we even begin our designing. So let's say you had an input of type checkbox. Now, the reason I have selected this input type, you can use any input type here, is because, for example, this check, let's come back to our browser and refresh. That's because when I tick this checkbox, it maintains its state of being checked until I click it again. So this is very good because if I used the focus, for example, the focus here, if there's many items here and then I focus on this one, or maybe the mouse over, you see when I move the mouse on here, it contains a state of mouse over, but that state is released the moment I move the mouse away from it. However, this checked state remains until I click it again. So I can click this and click some other things and it will still remain checked like that, which is exactly what I want. So I want to use this to drive the responsive design menu. So when it's in mobile version, once this is ticked like that, the menu here will appear, and once it's not ticked, it will disappear. So now the thing is, because we don't want to be clicking on a checkbox like this to open, we want to click on our menu icon and not click here on this thing in order to activate it. So there's actually a way to do that, to click somewhere else and have the input, the checkbox checked. So let me show you how to do that just now. You do that by creating a label. So if I have a label here, and I'll just call this one label like this, right? Let's do that. So this is a label. If I click on the label, nothing happens. But if the checkbox is inside the label, I think that may change things. So let's try that again. So now you see if it's inside the label, I can click on the label and the checkbox will actually be activated that way. So this could be a menu item. instead of this. Now the problem is we will need several menu items because we just won't have one thing in the menu, we'll have several things. So how can we make several labels that are all activating this thing? So it turns out there's actually a way. To do that, we'll give this checkbox an ID. So let's give it an ID of, let's say, menu, just something to, it can be any word there. So, and then in the label, we'll just say for menu. So what we're doing we are telling the label that it is meant for this item right there. So when we click on this, it will still activate that. So let's see if that actually works. So if I click, you see it's still working, even though the label, this checkbox is not inside the label. So, which is a good thing, because now I can have many of these labels, let's say 2, 3, and 4, that will all activate the same item because they are written the same thing there. So let me refresh this page and let me click on label 1, see label 2, label 3, they're all activating and deactivating the checkbox. So this is pretty good. So these could be menu items here and they can be activating that one thing. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, actually for a moment, let's see how this is gonna work. Let's see one more thing. So what I want to do is to change, let's say this label right here. Oh, let me put an item down here. I'm going to add something simple like, let me add a style here. So let me add a div and a style. So first of all, I'll give this a height of, let's say 100 pixels and width, same 100 pixels. And then I'll give it a background color of black. Okay, so now I want to show you how you can use the state of the checked thing to activate something else. So I'll give this div an ID. So I'll just give it an ID of div just for simplicity's sake. So if I go back to my page and refresh, you see the item is here. Now what I want is for this thing to change color when this thing is ticked right there. Okay, so to do that, what I need to do is I will go to get this menu because this is the ID for this input and go to styles. So we'll do this entirely in CSS. So I'll say menu. Now we all know that, so now this represents that. So whatever styles I put in here represent this. But the thing I want to control is the state of this one, the checked state. So I will say full colon and then I will say checked, like so. So the styles in here will only work when this is checked. So then I will say something like, for a moment. So now the thing is, the styles will act on this same thing itself. So let's try and see if we can change something on this. So let's just say border. Let's add something, border. Let's add something we can see. Solid, thick, red, something like this. So we're just adding a border to it once it's checked. So let me refresh this and click there. So it seems that thing doesn't actually work out well. So let's try a transform maybe. I'll try transform and then I'll use a scale and I say 4. Something like this, because scale 1 is the normal, so 4 is like 4 times as much. So as you can see, when it's ticked, it's big, and then when I click on it to untick it, it's small. So every time I tick, the styles in here are happening when it's checked, like this, right? So I guess that makes sense. Like that, like that. Now the interesting thing is I can activate another item from the checked situation of this one. And then if we go down here, you see that this item and this item are next to each other. Now to select an item next to the one you've selected, you use the plus sign, or you can use the tilde key, which is right next to number 1 or above the tab key. It looks like that. You can use that one. So I'm going to say this one, that's for sibling. That's what it means, sibling, or you can use the plus sign, which means the item right next to this one. But let's use sibling for now. So what I want to do is when this is checked, I want to activate a sibling, which is this one. And the ID for this one is div. So I will just say sibling and then div, like so. So what I'm telling it is that once it's checked, do something to the div. Now I don't want a transform, I want to change the background color to red, like so. So if I come back here and refresh my page, let's try that, and it seems it is not working. Okay, so what's happening? Okay, so now the reason it's happening is because my background color is set right inline here, and whenever you set a style inside the item, it's very difficult to actually override it with this, because the way styles work is that the first style is taken into account, but then if another one is found, that's the one that will win. So since this one comes second, it's not possible to change it from the beginning there. So what I need to do is create another style for div itself, where I will put this background color so that I can actually change it when I want to. So I can do that by just saying div, and then I move this color here. I don't have to move all the styles, I just need to move this one because that's the one I'm changing. So let's come back here and refresh. So you see nothing, but now if I click on the label, you see that the color has changed due to the checked situation here. So by doing this, I can edit this thing based on the checked situation of that thing. So even if I click directly here, same thing. So this is the principle that we are going to be using to activate our menu. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, let's actually begin our styling to create a reasonable looking menu. So back in our text editor here, let's remove everything that we don't need. So for now, we just need the header itself. And let's remove all these styles because they reference things that no longer exist. So let me save that. And then now I want to style the header. So I will say header, like so. And then of course I want the width to be 100%, but it will be 100% by default. So let me just deal with the height. So I'll say height 50 pixels, like that. And then background color, I will put a background color of black. Now I'm just putting this color so I can just see it. So let me refresh, and there we go. Now you see there's spaces here at the top and the side. Now your page might not look like this because mine is zoomed in at 300%. So if I click there, then this is more or less how yours will look like. So there's a bit of a border at the top there, so let's get rid of that. It's in the body, so let me say body, and then I will say margin 0 pixels, duplicate that, and then I will say padding 0 pixels, like that. Okay, let me move these in line. All right, so once I save that, you will notice that everything goes to the top like that. And then we have an image here which we want to use as a background image. So it's called bg.jpg. So what I will do is use that and say background image, or you can just use background by itself. So background image URL, because it's a link, and then we'll say bg.jpg, like that. And then background. Okay, before I do any of that, let me show you what that does. So this is our background, but then you see that it's repeated. It stops there and then it's repeated here. So what I will do is say background repeat. Where is background repeat? I'll say no repeat, like so. and you will notice that it will not be repeated anymore. But then I want it to fill the width, so I'll say background size. I'm looking for background size. I will say 100%. So that's for the width. Now if you want to also determine the size of the height, you just put a value here, maybe 100 pixels or 100%. But the first one is for the width. So let's refresh that, and there we go. So looking good. Now here I can right click on the header itself and inspect element. If you're using Chrome, this might be slightly different, but same principle. And click here and actually adjust the background color to something that suits what I want. Okay, something like that. Now it's also possible to add some transparency like so, if that's what you're going for. So you can make it a bit transparent like that. That's entirely up to you, but I won't be doing that in here. So I'll copy this and this color, close that, come back here, and I will put that color where? Here on the header. Great. Okay, so far so good. So now let's deal with the font. So in my folder, I have a font here called Open Sans Regular, so you can have any font of your choice here. So I'm just going to rename this, select everything. Now make sure you copy the file extension as well. I don't know if it will work without the file extension, but you can test that. So I want to put a font here. Now that is a custom font. It's not a font that is inside my Windows. So in order for me to have this work well, I have to declare it here. So I'll use @font face like this, like so, and then open close bracket, and then I will say font family. Now I will set this to a URL because it's a link, and then put my font there like that. Okay, and then I can say actually, my bad, let me duplicate this. Here I will say source, src, like that. So this is the source. Font family is the name that we will give it. So I'll just give it, I'll just say my font like that. So you can give it whatever name you want. That way, if I copy this and put it inside the body, I will have that font there. Now for you, before I do that, so we can see that there's a difference here, let me just type something like header inside the header here, and then let's refresh. Before that, let's add the color. I will say color white so that we can see our text, and then I will say font size. In fact, let me put that in the body. The font size, let's start with 13 pixels as the normal, but inside header I will say font size maybe 20 pixels, just so we can see something here. So let me refresh, and you see there's header there. But then if I get my font here excuse me, font family, and put it inside my body like so, and refresh, you will see that the font has changed now to that loaded font there. Okay, so pretty cool so far. And now what I need to do is, let me add my logo. Now the thing I want to do is create two divs here. So there will be one div that will be responsible for the logo. So I'll put an ID of logo there, duplicate the ID, and this one will be the kind of like the menu pages in there. So these are two divs there. Now I can style these two divs right here. The first one is logo. For now, I just want to put a border because I want you to see something. Border, solid, thin, red as usual. And then I will duplicate this to deal with the menu now. So copy and put menu there. Great. So now let's see what these divs are doing. So of course they have issues there because their heights are small. So let me put height like that at 50 pixels, just so we can see them. Okay, so as you can see, there's one div at the top and one at the bottom, as you would expect, because the divs automatically go to their display is block, which means it takes the whole entire area from left to right. Now what we want is them to be side by side. Now to do this, we simply go to the header and change the display to flex. So the moment I go to header and tell it to display, sorry about that, display flex like so, and then I come back here and refresh, you see that they are flexing, but unfortunately they are all squeezed in that corner. So I should tell them how much each of them should flex. So I'll just say flex 1 like that. So these are ratios. So this is 1 to 1. So which means equal space. So as you can see now, the left hand side is equal space to the other side. But I want this to be smaller and this one to be bigger. So I need to change the ratio of one of them. So I can either reduce this ratio to 0 point something, but I want to increase this one to maybe 6. So let's see that. And as you can see, one of them is smaller, the other one is bigger. So while we still have these, what I will do is inside the logo, I will input the logo by adding the image tag here. And then the source is going to be our logo. So let's check in our folder what we've named our logo, and that is logo.png. So say logo.png. But because this is a large image, we're going to have that. So I just need to edit this a little bit. So I will use logo to style this. So say logo and then space img, meaning all the images inside this div. These are the styles here. So I will say height. I want to change the height. So say height, because the header is 50 pixels. I want to just say maybe 70 pixels. I want you to overlap the header a little bit. I kind of like that. Okay, so there we go. So that's looking great. Now, if we try to resize this, so let's go to responsive design menu, web developer, and then responsive design mode. Now this will be different on Chrome, of course, because this is Firefox. So just find the responsive design view. Then you can adjust your view like this or like that, right? As you can see, the background image is resizing because we've set it to 100%. Okay, so but that's what we want. This is looking good. It's resizing just fine. Okay, so let's close that responsive design view, and then let's add a few buttons in here. So now we can remove the red here because actually before we do that, let's add a third one here. So this one will be called, let's add a third div. This one will be called small menu underscore menu, like that. So I will do exactly the same here. Copy these styles, just put small at the beginning, and then tell it to flex this one maybe 0.1. Actually, we don't need much in there. Refresh. Actually 0.1 is too small, so maybe 0.5. No, that's too much. 3 maybe. Okay, so that's good enough for what we want. Now in here we want to put a an icon there for the small size. So now the icon, I found that online. If you go to Icon Monster, this is the website here. It's got very nice icons, so you can check those out. So I just searched for menu and I got one of these, but I got this one. Usually people use that one, so you can use any of these. When you click on these, it takes you to where you have to accept the user's license agreement. Then click on embed here. Then it will show you the embed code. So I can copy this code right here, copy that, because it's SVG, so you can use it internally. So I will come here and right inside small menu, I will paste it there like so. So this is a design of the path it just creates a curve, so you can resize this to anything that you really want and it won't lose any resolution. That's the advantage of SVG. So I'll refresh that and you see there's something showing up there. Now it's dark, so what I will do is, if I go to the right here on you can remove this if you want, it's no longer required. I can add fill to add a color here, so I'll say fill white, and when I come back here and refresh, you see that now the SVG is white in color. Okay, so if it doesn't work out well, you can go to the individual paths here themselves and put the fill in there. So sometimes that's what may be needed, but this is fine. I want to make it bigger, so I'll change the width and height to maybe 35, something like that. Let's see how that looks. Okay, I think I can live with that. And then inside small menu here, I want to what do I want to do here? I want to add some padding here, maybe 5 pixels, so that there's a bit of space between the menu item and okay, something like that will do. And then I will also put a cursor there so that there's a pointer. When somebody goes to this location, it changes to an arm like that. Okay, so far so good. If I reduce this, you see what's happening there quite well. Now before we remove these red things, let me put some buttons in there. So we're going to have a class called menu underscore buttons. Okay, something like this. So in here we will have some divs. So let me come down to right here at small menu. Okay, actually the big menu. So let's start with the big menu here. So I will put divs. Now this is up to you. You can use buttons instead. It will be easier to style. But actually, let's try that. Let me try button like that. And I will say home. Let's see what we can use here, because we have these icons here. So I want to use these icons as my guide here. So let's start with profile, chat, contacts, and so on. So let me try profile and let's see what happens here. So, and there is the button there, so I can add a class of menu button. It should just be one without an S, so remove that S there, and then let's style it a bit. So let's say height 100%. Let's see how that does. Okay, so there we go, height 100%, pretty good. And then let's try a fixed width. If that's what you want, you can say width, let's say 100 pixels. And then cursor, let's put a pointer there. So let's refresh, and there we go. So nice button there. Now if you want to adjust the background color, we can do that. So let's remove the border first so it doesn't look so 3D. Border, we're going to say none, and then I will add background color of white, and then the foreground color of black. So I'm simply adding numbers here which I can easily adjust, or values of colors, for example. So once I have it like that, and let's see, font family, I think the font family hasn't been set. I will say my font like so. Let's see how that fares. Okay, great. So now the reason I'm adding just those random colors is because I can inspect the element and then go and adjust as I need. So I can click here and start adjusting to find the optimum. What I usually do is start by changing the color itself to white, And I think the most interesting colors are a bit light for a background. So if I have that white, then I can go around and find exactly the kind of color that I need. So this is a styling matter, so this is entirely up to you what colors you want to use here. So I'll leave it up to you to decide. Or a good thing that I sometimes do is go on Google and check other buttons, and then I can get the colors that they have. Okay, so for now that is fine. We will change our background color to this one and change this one to white. Okay, now we can confidently remove these red border. Let me just do this so I can find all references and delete them and refresh. And there we go. So this is our menu, but I want this button on the other side. Now I don't want to float it to the other side, because you can easily do that. You can say float right. Actually, maybe that's a good idea. On the menu button here. Let's try that. Float right. And there we go. Okay. So now I can duplicate this menu buttons, and so there is profile and there is contacts, and then there's chat, and then we have one for search. Refresh, and there we go. So this is pretty cool. If you ask me. Now it depends. If you want to have a border here, you can easily add a border to this. Let's say, so border, maybe border right will be correct. Border right, and say solid thin. Now if you don't know what color to add, just add a random color like white, and then you can easily adjust that. So I'll reflect that, and there we go. So if I right click on this and say inspect element, I will see that there's a border color right here. I will click on it, and then I can make the necessary adjustments. So a good way is to copy the background color itself. So I'll click on the picker and click on that. Oh, wrong thing I have done there. Let me refresh the page. What I wanted to change was the border color. So click there and select this color itself, and then make it lighter, like so. That usually does the trick. Okay, so click there and copy that border and put it there. Oops, I did the wrong thing. So just that should be enough. Okay, goody. Now if I refresh, it's permanent. Now if you want this to act differently when you hover on it, that's also possible. I can change the background color when I hover on it. So I just inspect the element again and change it to the color that I want it to change to. Maybe something very light like so. Then click, copy that. And then I can easily go just the same way we used the checked on that other thing. I can also do dot menu button, but then I will say hover like that. So instead of checked, we are using hover, and then I will just change the background color here. Use that, and of course I want the color, the foreground color, to change to a darker color, because otherwise we won't be able to read the text. So I'll say something like gray. So let me refresh that, and now if I hover on these guys, you see that kind of change there, which is awesome. But maybe I can be very specific with a close to black, because 000 is black and FFF is white. So the way these colors work is this is red, this is green, this is blue. Actually, normally you have 2 colors for red, 2 colors for green, 2 colors for blue. So this qualifies as white, because F is the maximum, 0 is the minimum, so F is maximum. So the way the numbers move is from 0 to 9, and then after 9 it starts A, B, C, D up to F. So F is like 15, so these are hex numbers. So if you want to lower the red, for example, like in here the color is white. Ooh, where is this? Menu button, hover. So if I want a black color, I will go 00, 00, 00, 00. So that's for red, green, and blue. So 2 colors for each. If I do that, you see now that it's black when I hover. But if I want red, so obviously I'll put full red here. FF, that's red. So this is red right there. So red, green, blue. So you can put any numbers in between 0 to F, and that will adjust the colors accordingly. So you see the red there. Okay, hopefully that worked for the short color lesson there. Okay, so we continue here. So everything looks fine so far. We hover, we do all that. But what we want now is when we go to the responsive design view, web developer tools, responsive design, is that if we adjust this, we don't want to see this kind of thing. We want this to disappear so that we can have a side menu on this other side. Okay, so let's do that. So I will add it inside this section here so that it's easier when I click on it, it will show the thing here, and when I click on it, it will disappear and so on. So what I will do inside this very menu button here, down here, I will put a div. All right, now this div will be, let's give it an ID. So these IDs are random, so I will call it small menu panel, or whatever it is you want to call it. That's entirely up to you. So that will hold the menu items in there. So I will put some styles here for it, and then let's style it. So first of all, what I want to do is give it a background color of black. We will change this later, of course. I just want to be able to see it. And then now the important thing is let's give it a height of 100%. Let's give it a width of say something like a cell phone resolution. Personally, what I use is 350. That's the cell phone resolution. But so which means I don't want it to cover the entire screen. I want it to cover just 3/4 of it. So I think from 350 maybe 200 pixels will be fine, or 250 if you're feeling up to it. So let's see what that does. So as you can see, this is the box right there. Now it's not doing us a very good justice. I want it here, for example. So in order for us to position it here and for it to be on top of everything, I want it to have a position of fixed. So position fixed. I don't want it moving around. So you can use fixed or you can use absolute. It will get you kind of the same result. The only difference is with absolute, if you scroll down on your page, the menu will go up as well. But I want if I scroll the page, the menu remains here regardless. So if I do this now, I refresh, you will see now that it goes all the way down here, but I want it on this side of the page. So what I would do is I will say left and say 0 pixels, like that. So I'm telling it where. Now left only works because I've changed the position to fixed or absolute. So let me refresh, and you can see it here. Now if you wanted it on your right hand side, you would use right here. But remember one thing, that right means this side, this top left corner. So if I do that, it might disappear. So let me do that. Oh, actually it's working well. So right 0. So this is how you change it. If you want it on the right hand side, you can say right, or left to say left. So let's go to our responsive view and make sure that this is a good size before we begin adding stuff in there. So responsive view, and I want to go to 350 as my width. So 350, that's what I consider a cell phone view. So I think this is good enough, so we'll leave it at that. Now I can re-inspect this element and get the background color to find something that I will like better. So maybe, so this is entirely up to you what kind of color you want to use here. So I want to use white in there, so I think a darker color will do. So copy that, close, and then I will come here and background color, bam. Now the text color, I want it white, like so. Okay, so now that we have that in there, what I can do is I can add some links in there. So a tags, like so. And then in there, I will add the same buttons that we have at the top there. So I can copy these buttons here if I want to. So let me try that. Something like this. Now, if I refresh, this is what I get because they are right next to each other. They are floating left and right. So to change things, let's change these to menu button small, or you can say small menu button, but I'll change it to that. That way I can come to menu button here and then duplicate that. Did I just duplicate it? Okay, I did. And then I will change the end here to small. Okay, then I can remove the float right, like this. So now they are one on top of the other. And then the height, I will remove this from 100% to, let's say, 30 pixels. Let's try that. Width 100%. Actually, oh, we might need to do that. So 100%. Okay, so there we get this action happening here. And I could increase the height a little bit, maybe to 50 or 40. So this is a matter of preference. Now I like them better when they have a slight gap. So what I will do is add a margin at the bottom or just at the top. That would be fine, or maybe 2 pixels. Let's see how that looks like. Okay, so that looks much better. Okay, pretty awesome. Now I could add some images in here, but before that, let me add one more div at the top here, which will just say menu, like that. And then let me add some styles here. I'll give it a background color of let's try white, and then color of gray, and then height of let's try 30 pixels, maybe 40 pixels. And what else do I need here? Text alignment, center. Okay, so let's see what we get there. Okay, so their menu, and then this action happening here. So let me inspect the element, and as usual, change a few colors here. I want a grayish of some sort. Let's go here. So as usual, this is personal preference. You can choose whatever you want here. And then color, let's try white. Then let's come back here and make a few adjustments. I don't know, maybe the black and white is cooler. Okay, so I'll copy that, and you can adjust as needed. So color white, no, that's not the one. This is the one right here. So color, background color is that one, and then the color white. Okay, goody. Now one more thing is the small menu here doesn't go all the way to the top. So if you want it to go all the way to the top, right here where we say left, you can also add another one called top, and you can give it any number you want. So in our case it's 0 because I want it right at the top. So once I click here, this menu comes on, and then I have that. So let's add some images in here. So we can easily add some images that are here. So At this point, first let's add the user.png to make it look much nicer. So right after this part here, I want to add an image. Source will be user.png, and then let's style it a bit. I want a margin of 10 pixels, and then I want its width to be 30 pixels. That should do. Right click, and there we go. Now in the small panel, I want text align to be center. So text align center. Let's see how that works. Yeah, so that centers our image. I think the image is way too small, so let's try something like 50 pixels. Okay, so there we go, our user there. And then let's add some icons in there as well to make it look nicer. So to do this, I just add an image here, image tag. So I will be like img src, and then close. Oh, sorry, gotten used to PHP, I guess. Okay, so here I want one image, maybe chat, this chat, contacts, search. Okay, it actually is they actually have the same names here, profile.png. So let's try one first, refresh, and there we go. Now the thing is, the image is too big, so we can easily, because these guys are inside the button and there's an image inside the button, so it's easy to style them. We can just say menu button small. I'll copy this, put it here, menu button small, and then put a space and say img. So whatever image is inside there, we can give it a width of let's try 20 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Way too small, so let's try 40, and then let's tell it to float to the left like that. Okay, so that's what you get. Maybe not ideal, but you get the idea. So actually maybe floating wasn't such a good idea. Let's try a margin of 4 pixels instead. Not good either. So maybe the float was actually much better. This styling is confusing me now. What I could do here, let's recap a little bit. Let's see what happens when I say margin top, and say something like minus 10 pixels. Let's see what effect that has. Oh, okay, so it moves things like that. Okay, interesting. No, I think I'm gonna go with the float. So you can spend as much time as you want here styling these things. I'll reduce that to 30. That's entirely up to you. So let's add the rest of them here, since we've styled for all of them. And here I just need to say contacts.png. So be careful with the capitalization of your text, your files. It might not be a big deal in Windows, but when you put it on a server, it might become a big deal, because that's Linux usually that is being used. And in Linux, files can be case sensitive. So there we go. Now we have our nice menu here. And what else are we need here? Okay, so all we need now is to be able to click on this, show that, and then make it disappear when we are on full screen. So because this is what we have now. So I want when I get to a specific point, and in my case, let me go down and see what is actually a good spot to change things. So just zoom out. So I think at about 700 pixels, it would be a good idea to make this appear and then make this part disappear so that I can allow for this thing to work. Okay, so let's do that. Now, a minor change here, the menu seems to be disappearing in there, so maybe I will change the color back to a black. So I will change it to a maybe close to 0444. That should do. Okay, I think that works better. Okay, so we've decided that at number 700 here, we'll have a breakpoint where some things appear, others disappear. Now, I must keep in mind to tell you that this is how responsive design works. So you find places where you want things to change, and then you take note of the width at that point, and then you add different styles at that point. Now, the important thing to remember is that the responsive design styles should be the very end down here. So every other style should be at the top here, the responsive design should be at the end, and that's important because whatever styles come last are the ones that will be used. So I must mention that you can put as many breakpoints as you want, and you can change as many things as you want on the screen at that breakpoint. So let's see how to make a breakpoint here. So we're going to say at media screen and like this. So you have to write it exactly like this, and then let's put max width, and then let's put our max width at 700 pixels and do this. So what this means here, you can use mean width if you want, or max width. Now keep in mind that when you use max width, these styles in here will apply below this number. So anything below 700 will apply here. If I put mean here, it means everything above 700 will work, but we want below, so I'll put max. So what do I want to change here? So let's look at our items here. So the first thing is I want because originally this will not show and this will not show. We'll make these disappear. So I want when I get to 700, they actually appear. So at this point, I will get this menu small thingy. Where is this? Menu small panel. So let me put its style in there. So say menu small panel. We'll use the display. I'll tell it to display block, meaning display. That's the normal default display. And then not only that, I want also, wait, this. Oh, actually, this contains everything here, so which is good. Actually, no, let's get small menu, not just this, because we want this also to appear, the menu button itself. So let's use small menu, not the panel. Good. Now, what else do we want to disappear? We want our this part with buttons, this one in the middle, yeah, to disappear. And what do we call that one? It's called menu. That's the div. So let's make it disappear at this point. So menu display none. Okay, so let's make sure that this is disappearing at 700. I'll refresh and you see it's gone. But when I go beyond there, it comes back. Now it's gone. Now it's back. Now we want these guys to disappear before that. So all we need to do is make them put display none originally. So now I shouldn't put this display none here, because as I mentioned earlier, if you put a style inline, you cannot change it from there because it will always come later. So let's find small menu somewhere, wherever it is, the style before this. So let's go to small menu, and right here I will tell it to display none so that it disappears. Okay, but then once we get to 700 pixel, that none will be changed to block. So let's see that in action. Refresh and let's move, and bam, you see that appear. Okay, pretty good. Bam. That's how you do responsive design. Now you can put as many of these breaks as you want and change anything you want in the interface, and it will work out. That's how responsive design works. Now, because we've made this disappear, this has grown bigger. So what we do is, let's go to our where is this, our flex. Where is the flex here? There's one thing that I made to flex menu small itself. Where is it? So we'll flex to 0.1 instead. Let's try that. Okay, that looks good enough. Okay, so now the only thing remaining is to make it respond to, it shouldn't be just like this. It should only come on when we click here and then go away when we click here. So in order to achieve that clicking here, let's use the principle that we learned about in the very beginning. So let's add a checkbox, shall we? I will go right, where is this? Right here. This is the small menu there. Okay. So once the small menu appears, everything here appears with it. Okay, the small panel. So it's a small panel that we want to appear and disappear. So let's put our input right above it. So the checkbox, I mean. So type is checkbox. So let's give it an ID so we can reference it, and we're going to say menu checkbox, like so. That's what we will call it. So menu checkbox. Copy there, and then let's see where it is showing here, and you can see it right there. So what I want now is to click here and have it bring this back and forth. So let's do that. I will go up here. This is a small menu panel that we're activating. So I'll go here. Now remember, this should be last. So we will say menu checkbox. When it is checked, what we want to do, we want its sibling or the item right next to it. Either way will work. Let's get the small menu panel and do something to it. So say display block. Okay. So in order for this to work, the original display must be none. So let's go to small panel, which is right here. So let's give it a display of none. Like so. Great. Refresh, and there we go. Now if I click on that, it appears. If I click on that, it disappears. That's what we want. Now what we need is just to have this guy here activate this. That's it. So let's come back here and see how we can actually do that. And we remember this by adding a label, right? Label. So let's add a label right there. Now we don't need to see the label, so the label doesn't need to have anything in here. So we can just say, actually, I can just put this inside the label because it's just one item. So cut that. So opening label, let me actually put this like so, and then put the closing label there. Now, so here I will say 4 and then get the checkbox. I think that ought to do it. So refresh and let's click here. There we go. There we go. So let's give this baby here. Let's add a few styles and just say cursor pointer. That way at least we have an arm to point at, like so. Boom, boom. Now, oh, I see. So now we need a way for these to disappear once we click on them. So in the interest of not wanting to use JavaScript, we will use the label once more. And so I will come to, actually we might not need that because, oh, maybe we might. So let's get a label here. Let's get this label. We don't actually need the cursor. So what I will do is come here and let's try it on one of these. So label, let's put that in there where it belongs. Let's leave a bit of space for clarity. So that's our label here. Let's remove the style here. We just need the label. So refresh and let's click on that. Oh, actually, one thing I forgot to mention is that buttons, for some reason, they don't work with labels. I don't know why. So let's change this button to a div, sadly. So let me put div there, and let's put div also there. Let's refresh, and there we go. And when I click, it now works. So font size there, you can adjust as needed. So maybe I should adjust that. This is menu button small. Where are you? Menu button small. Menu button small. There. So font size. Where are you? Font size. Font size. Let's try 13 pixels because I think that's not 13. Okay. Maybe too small. Larger was more interesting, so let's do that. Okay, 16 I think is good. Then you can add a padding at the top there if you want to, so that there's a bit of space at the top there, maybe 4 pixels, something like this, just to make it look a little bit more buttony. But then you have this extra here. It could be something you want, maybe it could be a design thing, it could be okay or not. That's entirely up to you. Actually, interesting thing is you can use this as a way to hover on these, make them more interesting. So what you can do for this is, let me remove this padding here, and on the hover I can put it there instead, and that way if I refresh and do this, you see that's going on there to show that this one is selected. So maybe I can say 6 instead. Let's see if that looks good. Okay, maybe 4 was fine. So now the thing is, if I go down here, I have to do this for all of these guys. So copy, move this a step back, copy, there, there, and finally there. So tab these in so we can see they're inside, and then copy the ending part and put it there. Same thing here, and finally same thing here. So all these are inside the label. Now if these are links, you can put A tags on top of the label, no problem. So you put A tags there just to make sure that when you click, they lead somewhere. So that's entirely up to you if that's how you want to put the menus. So, oops, why aren't these guys? Oh, I haven't changed them from buttons. So sorry, my bad there. The problem is when selecting here, there's this button here, unfortunately. So how do I select this one? No other way. I just have to type them one by one. Tedious work. Div. I like having to select multiple things and type them at once because I'm definitely lazy. So this is painful to do. Okay, so now that we are done, it should work. Everything is now a div. So there we go. Now, as you can see, this is a nice happening here, but we could make it smoother by adding a transition. So it's simple. You just go to, because we've already added something in the hover. Where is this? This is the hover. So right in here, I can just say transition, so that everything that you add, you change inside the hover will transition slowly. So in here, I'll just say transition all of them, everything that I changed there, and then I would tell it to how long I want the transition to last, maybe 0.5 seconds, and then use an easy ease like so. That's how you put transitions. So you're putting this inside the main part, not in the hover, but in the main one. So once I do that, now I can, you see that? It looks much nicer. Okay. So you can make many changes and they will be slowly adjusting like that, which makes it look pretty cool. Okay, so now we just need to make this disappear because at this point we are doing that. Oh, and before we do that, we can add a transition as well to this coming in and going out. Now that shouldn't be a transition because you can't transition the display on and off. Display none cannot be transitioned. So what we will do is instead we'll add an animation so that whenever it appears, it begins with an animation. So first of all, let's make that disappear, the checkbox. Where are you, checkbox? So we will go right onto the checkbox itself and add a style and tell it to display none. We don't need to see it at all. Okay, so there it's gone, but things still work. So now let's add a transition here. And to do that, we will need to create an animation. So we can make that transition. I like to put the transitions at the very top. Just like we used at font face, we can use at keyframes. And then give our animation a name, like appear, for example. Any name will do. So let's, the way animations work is you define what happens at a certain percentage in time. So at 0%, I want something to happen and I want something else to happen at 100%. Now you can put many of these in between. I can put one at 50%. I can put another one at 70%. You can put as many as you want. 100 is the maximum here. So that's up to you, but I just want to use 0 and 100. So in 0, I want the opacity to be 0. Then I want to transform this thing. What kind of transform? I want to use a translate in the x-axis. I want it to translate minus 300 pixels. Okay. But I also need to define what happens at 100%. So let me copy that and put some styles there. Opacity, I want it to be at 1 so I can see it, and I want no transition here. Very good. Okay, now the reason I tell it to translate to minus 300 and then go back to normal is because in case you have a machine where transitions don't work, it won't affect the look because this doesn't depend on the translation to work. Even if there's no translation, it still goes back to 0 because that's 0 is the default. So let's try and see that. Oh, sorry, we've just defined the animation, but let's put it to use. So I'll copy that name and go to my small panel, which I want to actually use this animation. And down here, I will say animation, of course, the name of the animation and how long I want it to last, maybe 1 second. And I want to use ease as well here. There are many transition types you can use. There's cubic, Bezier, and all that. You can Google those. So let me refresh here and you see what happens now. And then boom. Now you can add many things to translate here. For example, this translate, you can add a rotation. Now keep in mind that it's still in the transform. So you can put translate and you can put scale and you can put rotate, for example. Rotate and give it the amount of degrees. Maybe you want 45 degrees. So just like I did here, I will put this and put it at 0 degrees so that by the time it lands, it's not rotated. So as you can see, there we go, boom. So the pivot is right here. You can even move the pivot of where you want it to rotate from. If let's say I want it to rotate from down here, you can tell where you want the X origin to be and the Y origin using percentages. Like here it's at 0,0, but let's say I want it to rotate here. It will mean I'll put X 100% and Y 0. but if I put X 100 and Y 100, they need to rotate from there. So let's try that. I will say, this is a different style, of course. I'll go here and say transform origin, and I'll say 100% space 100%. So one is for the X, one is for the Y, and that should do it. So you see it will rotate from here now. So let me refresh. There we go. So it's up to you what you want to do in these situations. So, but I'll leave it there. I'll leave the rotation as well, just because it's nice. So click, click. Okay, and then zoom out and zoom in. See that? Very nice. Okay, so I hope you have learned something in this tutorial, because I've tried to go through all the principles that I'm using here. Hopefully you found this tutorial useful. If you have, give it a thumbs up, share it so that my channel can grow, and of course, subscribe. All right, I'll see you in another tutorial.